we're going to talk about Seth Rollins here because one of the main things that jumped out to SB3 and I was his admission that he's never going to be the number one WWE guy in a Roman Reigns world, basically. Now, the important context, of course, okay, Tyler Black and all of his accomplishments and kind of being one of the leaders of NXT before the Shield debuts. Let's check all of that at the door, right? You can also check that with the lineage of Roman Reigns, okay, in the Anoa'i family and, how he was destined for certain things and his pathway. Two very different pathways into the business, but let's talk about how they converge with Dean Ambrose, John Moxley on the Shield. Nearly 10 years ago, I think we're only a month and a bit shy and change of their 10-year debut. I think it was quite obvious from the jump, SB3, that Roman Reigns was the guy that WWE was certainly trying to position. I know they were like a real unit for a long time, but as the group got towards its end, it became more apparent, didn't it, that Roman was the one they were showcasing, they were going to push, and they've stayed on that trajectory ever since. And now Roman, of course, is at a level that WWE wanted for a long time, but they couldn't actually get, right? They wanted it so bad. They were telling us this is the guy, and they were going about it all the wrong way. They had the right piece. I've always said this. Ezra Theory will back me up on this. They had the right piece all along. They were just using him the wrong way, and they were projecting him onto the fans the wrong way. Seth Rollins, on the other hand, okay, he had a great push coming out of the Shield with the heel turn and whatnot. And at various points, he has been flying from an in-ring standpoint. Flying, right? But has he ever been the poster boy that WWE were ever really looking for, a la Rock, Cena, Reigns? Even a Bryan Danielson, incredible workers get their moment in the sun, but it's like, are they ever the guys? These are the questions, man. What did you make of Seth Rollins kind of admitting, or certainly from his perspective, that Roman Reigns will always be that guy, and as much as he believes he could bring to the table all the things that Roman does, he realizes the WWE landscape.
Yeah, I think the interview, the portion of it that I was able to watch was probably the most genuine, sincere, and earnest that we've ever heard Seth Rollins be. I think that he's grown a lot, he's matured a lot in his career, and as a man, having a kid will do that as well, as me and Alex can attest to that. And all of those contribute to where he's at, and he can genuinely, look at his career and look at it in a honest way, the way he did during the interview. What's up, Seth? But
brother.
I totally agree with him. Seth Rollins has never been the guy. WWE, Ring of Honor. He even brought up Ring of Honor, and I like the fact that he brought it up because that reminded me that I was like, man, I've been watching Seth Rollins for 15 years. 15 years this year. I've been watching Seth Rollins work since he debuted in Ring of Honor back in 2007. So I've watched a good portion. He said he's been in the business for 2 decades. I've watched a good 15 years of that about. And yeah, he's never been the guy. I was the guy in the crowd at Ring of Honor events that was like, Seth Rollins is going to be the next big thing. And my friends are telling me, nah, he's not Nigel. Nah, he's not Brian. And in WWE, when he was a part of the Shield, I was like, he's the best worker of the Shield. I was like, Ambrose is the best talker. He's the best worker. But obviously, like Alex said, we all kind of saw WWE's choosing the third guy, though. It doesn't matter how good a talker, how good a talker Ambrose in, how good a worker Rollins in. They don't have the look that Roman has, so they're gonna pick Roman. And I grew to appreciate all the things that Roman Reigns was great at. And I can genuinely say I've seen a lot of the career of all 3 members of the Shield, but yeah, it's not gonna happen for Seth Rollins. For John Moxley, I probably would be saying the same thing. It would never happen for him as well. until he had to leave the whole company and go to a whole new company. That's how he became the top guy in the business, the guy. And now for AEW, he is the guy. In 2022, I would say Jon Moxley is the guy this year. He was the best wrestler back in 2020 in his first run as AEW World Champion, and I think he's the best wrestler now. I think for Seth Rollins, for Tyler Black, for Kobe Lopez, for him to achieve the goal that he's always wanted to be the guy, he's got to leave WWE, and that's not going to happen. So I think that what we saw is a person that has kind of come to the realization that no, he has kind of put himself in a box that he's never going to leave WWE because that's he wants to be the flag bearer. He wants to be that type of guy, but he also will never be the guy because of that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and that's when you got to remember how firmly entrenched his roots are with WWE at this point. But also, I mean, Roman is where he is now, and it's fairly an untouchable level. Like it's one of them, where you get so over, or you're in such a position where he's pretty bulletproof, right? Now it's the same thing where Seth has had many runs where people have become believers, basically. And they'd be like, oh, yeah. I said this to you off air. There was a time where whatever Seth said rubbed people up the wrong way, right? Anything that he said on Twitter, no matter how kind of subtle, no matter how innocent, people would twist that shit and they would be like, oh, yeah, it's Seth Rollins. And it all kind of started with the comment with Will Ospreay that we talked about, right? That was up there. And then, because I remember when Talent were getting released, and I think he did an Instagram live, and he was, oh, I know it's awful, it is awful. We need to kind of band together in this time. And then people were twisting that and going, oh, Seth Rollins is, he's a company guy, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, he is, right? He is a company guy. We know this, but it was just one of those things where, like, if anyone else had said it, it wouldn't have been as bad. You know what I mean?
I think it was because he chose a time where the WWE enthusiasm in the product was lowest as possible, and AEW just came into form. I say kind of the domino that first drop was the interview in which he said he viewed Jon Moxley, a guy that has said nothing but good things about him since he left the company. He views him as an enemy because he's trying to take food off his table. That's when everybody was just like...
Was that character though, or was it as sincere as this one just the last week? I don't know.
But even if I saw some people that was like, oh, he's saying it in character, and then I saw the people replying to that was like, oh, well, even if it's in character, that's not a good look. It does not. It's not a good look, sir. And especially because at the time, if you're saying this in character, you're the top babyface for the company. You're the number one babyface. Why are you saying something like this? Like, you should just be like how you did in this interview with Ariel Helwani, where you were like, I'm cool with John. He's not much of a texter, but we still are very cool, chill with each other. That's fine. Why couldn't you say that back in 2019? Why did he need to be taking food off your table? Because he knew he wanted to be the guy. And he wasn't going to do it there because the person in charge never viewed him as such. And he decided that he was going to create his own path. In a lot of ways, I wish they would have mentioned this during their feud, but he chose the path that a lot of fans wish CM Punk did back in 2014. He was disgruntled with the company, but he just chose another path in the business to accomplish his goal, and he reached it. So, it's just why are you upset at him for all of that? I wish that the Seth Rollins of 2022 could have talked to the Seth Rollins of 2019, and maybe we wouldn't have had the Will Ospreay exchange. We wouldn't have the text message, the tweets when he was like, oh, WWE has the best wrestling product in the business. When at a time when that whole company was telling us, it's not wrestling, it's sports entertainment, and then you're telling us you have the best rest. There was a lot of things in that whole year that caused the reaction from the fans. So I'm not necessarily going to be like, oh yeah, he got a hard time. He was getting, ragged on and everything, because in my eyes, I feel like a lot of the Seth Rollins fans have taken that kind of vitriol that he got in response to a lot of stupid mistakes that he made. He was getting vitriol because of that. And then the Seth Rollins fans took that to overcompensate for Seth Rollins.
Yeah,
they have to make everything that he does great into the greatest thing ever.
I mean, it definitely accrued, right? Like, and again, like there are a lot of instances, many that you just brought up that I totally get, right? And I was also there going, oh man, come on, Seth. But it definitely got to a point where it was just like a bit too much. Like they were just finding anything in anything that he said. And the whole heel turn, he's been very open about this. He's not shied from putting WWE under the bus for that. He's like, man, that wasn't my call. He still said that in this interview with Ariel as well. Like the whole Fiend thing, he's firmly laying the blame at Vince McMahon's door. Don't think he isn't. And he always has, right? And I think most of us with, I don't want to call it a working knowledge of the business, but some insight would know, yes, that is exactly what happened. Vince McMahon made the call. They had to go with it. Crowd shit on it. And then Vince had to kind of eat that. And as well, but Seth had to eat it the most. And he had to like rebuild himself from there. The year prior to that, he'd had a monumental run as Intercontinental Champion, burning the house down literally every single week. And again, like it took a lot of energy to get to that spot. But what he kept undoing the first hand, again, was his own, kind of foul pose or whatever you want to call them, like just not having a good time on social media mostly. But again, I felt like his talent always spoke louder for me. And there were a lot of people that were kind of resistant to admit how good Seth was. Now, I should say, when AEW come along, right? And you got this, and don't get me wrong, many, 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 many amazing wrestlers there. But I feel like people don't want to put Seth in that top bracket. Now, here's another discussion to have. He might not be the top guy in WWE. Well, he's not. We know this, right? He says it as much. Roman is the guy. But in terms of in-ring performers, right, in WWE, he absolutely is. Across the world right now, SP3, is he in the tippy top bracket?
So for reference, my tippy top bracket would be the top 5 best wrestlers in the world. I don't have Seth Rollins in that.
Who do you have then?
I don't even have Seth Rollins as my only WWE guy in this, because I would argue that, well, I mean, 2022, I would say Seth is the in-ring MVP because of the series with Cody, the matches with Riddle, even that banger tag match with him and Owens versus Rated R, RK Bro and Alpha Academy were great on Monday Night Raw, just weekly.
He was good. He was good last year too, man. The trilogy with Edge.
Oh yeah. Most definitely.
Had a run.
Most definitely. That's when I felt like the Seth fans were overcompensating. First I started overcompensating because I thought it was great stuff and I was complimenting it and praising it. And then I just heard people like overly praising it. I was just like,
he's the best.
Yeah,
he's the best.
Okay, let's relax. But I think right now, objectively speaking, Will Ospreay is better. Just Will Ospreay just turns out more quality matches, whether it's in New Japan, on the independent scene. I would say Gunther is the best bout machine in WWE. He doesn't get the opportunities, but I mean, if Seth's gonna have 7 matches, I think Seth is gonna have 5. If he's gonna have 5 great ones in that. But Gunther is going to have 7 great matches if he has 7 matches. If he has 7 matches on pay-per-view, yes.
No, on pay-per-view, yes. That's the distinction you just made. But if he had to work the volume that Seth does, I might argue that Gunther's style and character is more protected. He has had like a lot of classics. But again, it's what criteria is, right? Like a Will Ospreay, he's churning out classic. Again, just going by what you just said, the Will Ospreay criteria is that he's banging them out, right?
Yeah,
a bagger after bagger, right? Whereas Gunther is not that, right? And not that he can't, but if we're going by that blueprint, that's not really the way he's been utilized.
But
so I understand.
This is the difference. If I'm gonna dissect this is the difference. Seth and Will are like if you're watching baseball, this might be a bad term because I know a lot of people from the UK are watching this. But if you're watching baseball, there are hitters that are going to play all 162 games, right? And they're going to, you got Aaron Judge out here for the Yankees, who's having a great year. He just hit his 60th home run. He just tied 61st home run, tied the American League record. He's performing 162 games, whereas the starting pitcher gets 5 days off. He's only going to start about 60 games out of those 162. Gunther is the starting pitcher. So he's the best starting pitcher out there. He's not playing as many games as Seth or Will, but he is putting out the amount of quality that Seth and Will is in the amount of times that he wrestles.
I mean, you'll get, again, let me be very clear. You'll get no argument to me about the quality of Gunther. I think I've been very vocal down the years about just what I think about him. I'm just trying to develop a rationale here for the top 5. So please continue.
So, Gunther, Will, John Moxley. I'm sorry. Yeah, Moxley's another one. And this is the reason for Will and John, I would say it's higher than anyone, is because they're not just doing it for one company. They're doing it for multiple companies, so that actually elevates their impact on the entire industry because of the quality of work they're doing in multiple different companies. So those 3 definitely I would have ahead of Seth. Okada I would have ahead of Seth, especially this year he's been killing it as well.